What is up, wrestling card fans? Welcome to the Huskerhav Wrestling Card Podcast. We're back again. It's Anthony and myself, and this month we're joined by Rich Velligan, the Japanese Pro Wrestling Trading Card Almanac. We have him right here. Wow, what a tool for a Japanese wrestling card collector. If you want to know what any set has, it's all in here. If I knew how to show the camera, there we go.
Yep.
How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Good.
Hey, Rich, I want to throw it out there quickly. Let's just dive into this. Give us just a brief overview of wrestling cards in Japan in general. What you found through your book publishing and set collecting, everything like that. Give us just kind of a rundown on why a collector should collect Japanese cards.
The first thing I notice is they treat wrestling, pro wrestling, and sumo wrestling as a sport. Up there with baseball, up there with any of the major sports. They get major press coverage, which is a lot different than here, where it's treated as an afterthought and more of an entertainment type. So going with that, they tend to take it very seriously. They're very hardcore. They like their people. They like their companies, and they're very loyal. You know, there are some people that don't like New Japan, but they like All Japan, and they like Noah. And similar here, you know, we have the AEW and WWE people back and forth. It's no different, but as far as cards, back in the day, they made them for many of the companies, and now it's a trickle where you see maybe New Japan and you see maybe a little bit here and there for Noah. Obviously BBM still makes the women's wrestling cards, but it's very sparse with the current crop of cards coming out.
Why is that is it just not as popular in Japan as it is here, like the card collecting aspect of it?
They tend to sell different items other than just cards. They have the newest thing that recently the companies have put out besides New Japan are like an acrylic card where it has a stand. The card it's not really a card though. It's more of like a printed mat inside of a framed acrylic holder, and you can stand it up and it displays. They're nice, but they're not a traditional card. Yeah. So, and it's funny because, you know, sometimes cards are hard to display. I don't, as you can tell, I don't have any cards on display. I have posters, but I don't have cards. They take up a lot of room. If you're trying to display something, you know, little tiny 2.5 by 3.5, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Now the Japanese cards actually started back around '69, I think, in magazines, in Gong magazines, and then they had Cosmos in the early '80s. But BBM really kicked off around '95, correct?
Yeah, '95 was the pro wrestling set. They did a set in '94 with the women's wrestling, but it was a factory set. But 95 kicked. Basically, I called 95 is the upper deck, the '89 upper deck baseball to Japanese pro wrestling. Had all the companies in there minus All Japan. But yeah, that was the start of the new. I guess the next wave, because throughout the years there were cards produced, but again, it wasn't mass produced, and it wasn't one company holding it. A company would put out their own cards, and that took place in the 70s and the 80s, and finally 95 they started to work it out.
And they actually kept that format for, what was it, 4 or 5 years, where they had all the different divisions, and then they kind of, what was it, around 2000 or 2001, they started breaking down to where they were doing the individual sets. Is that correct?
So 95 to 2003,
Okay.
It was women and men's pro wrestling. 2004, that's when True Heart started for the women's wrestling cards.
Yep. Yep.
So 04, 05, and then 06, 07 was a combined set, and it was just the men's in the sets. I take that back. 04 still had ladies cards in it, but 05, 06, 07 didn't. And then they did the factory sets from 07, 08 till 09, 10, and it was the four major companies had them. Dragon Gate also had a set in there. So yeah, it was BBM though. After 2010, they produced a Dragon Gate set in 2016, and other than that, they've still continued to make the women's wrestling cards, but nothing for the men's.
Why do you think that is?
Probably licensing and monetarily.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean nowadays New Japan and Stardom are owned by Bushiroad, which has their own card division,
yep.
Which they put out their own product. So yeah, it's probably just a monetary thing, or there's not a demand for it.
Now, as a collector, how do you feel, or how do you compare Bushiroad to BBM as far as their products are concerned? Because I collect both myself. I like them both, but they are two totally different type of products. I'm curious your thoughts on those.
BBM is a traditional trading card. Bushiroad is a gaming card. Gotcha. They're known as a gaming company, so it makes sense. The King of Pro Wrestling sets they did from 2012 to 2016, they're a gaming card, but the quality is fantastic, especially when you get to the rare cards. They're like the modern day refractors and superfractors, and they're outstanding, but just it hasn't caught on to where people get the eye appeal of what these cards look like.
And those sets themselves, the few that I'd been working on, they're not very large number wise. They're only like 45 to 50 cards, but you'll have 5 cards that are virtually impossible to get. But if you could find them, you could put together a really nice set, don't you think?
Yes. Yeah, the short prints are the foil. Most of them were gold foil, but there was one year where they did green foil and they did a silver foil. And those are the chase. They're not one per box. They're usually every couple boxes. And they're fantastic cards, and they don't come up for sale very often at all. And it's funny because like Will Ospreay, everybody is really into him these days. Yeah. And he has one of those signature cards. Super hard to find. Kenny Omega has them. Anybody, Finn Balor, Prince Devitt, anybody with a big name, they have those cards, but they are just really hard to find.
There's been like kind of an explosion in the popularity of the women's cards from Japan in the United States recently.
Yes.
What do you just attribute that to wrestling growing in general? Is this people trying to speculate on people who will eventually come over to the United States?
You really see it pick up, especially when they announce a girl from Japan coming over to wrestle in the States, or even the UK. You see an uptick in popularity and people wanting their cards. And vice versa here, you see U.S. girls go over to wrestle in Japan, and people are looking for those cards. And then when they get the exposure of who they wrestled in Japan, then people start looking for the girls that they're wrestling in Japan. So it definitely is a popular upkeep and uptick in the hobby about it. And the cards are not like Topps. They're not like Panini. The print runs are nowhere near what any of those companies are.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, and then you throw in Stardom. That is the one company that I'm just frustrated as all get out because they are near impossible to get. How many of those sets do you have?
Of Stardom?
Yeah.
I have I did complete the entire 2019 set.
Gotcha.
Autographs and everything. That is the only set that I ever attempted to complete. I've had singles here and there for the other years, but yeah, to find them in a bulk and try to do the set is near impossible.
Do you think that's ever going to change with Stardom? I know. My general feeling is they could make a lot more money if they produced more. I think there's a demand for them. I'm not sure why they do it that way. I've always I would like to actually talk to the creators to find out why they make them the way they do. Maybe they don't think they have that much of demand outside of Japan, but I myself, I would be buying a box of that stuff if I could get my hands on it.
It is extremely they're cool, but it's frustrating when you get the cards and you're like, they make such great gaming cards.
Yep.
To go an extra step and just put a little bio on the back, they would look amazing. The set they did put out this year, which was a combination of New Japan and Stardom, the back of the cards kind of looked like if you were taking a picture from your cell phone. So it had the shape of a cell phone screen, and fantastic. That was like so outside the box thinking, and it was like, let's do more of this. Like, people want these cards, and they sell fantastic because they were limited. There were only 9 girls from Stardom listed in that set. And those tend to sell 2 to 3 times more than what the guys sell for.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you how do you recommend, or what do you tell the collectors on how to get your hands on Japanese products? Where do you go to do that yourself?
Scour the internet. That's the best. It's tedious. It takes time. And the shipping does not help. If you have friends that live in Japan or know anybody going to Japan, getting multiple packages sent to one place and shipping them bulk, that's the way to go. That's how I do it. It just takes patience. You're not, somebody wants a card tomorrow of a star from Stardom. Well, it's probably, for me to get it, it's probably going to take 3 or 4 weeks before I get it into my possession. Some people just don't have that patience.
Probably do a lot of like checking every day for that card you need and just waiting for that to finally show up.
It's no different than a set collector here, looking for that one card that just doesn't pop up, and then finally you never know when it pops up either.
Now, have you traveled to Japan and actually bought cards in Japan?
I have not bought cards in Japan. I've been to Japan once.
Okay. Because that's on my bucket list to do as far as wrestling goes, is to travel to Japan, and I'm just curious how readily available packs and cards are there. Because like when I was living in Europe, any place that had a newspaper stand that were pretty popular in the town center, you could find wrestling stuff. And I've always wondered, is Japan kind of the same way? Any ideas?
Well, so the newest set that just came out is a collaboration with Lawson convenience stores. And it was just released 2 weeks ago. You get a package of mini meat sticks. It's a garlic flavored meat stick and something else in it. A package of 4 meat sticks, and it had a card inside the pack.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Yeah. So they do a lot of stuff cross promoting, going through like the years, like Circle K. They did cross promotions there with cards back in the early 2000s. Lawson, again, the last couple of years, they've done a promo with Lawson. They seem to do cards, just not in a regular sense where it's like, hey, I want to go buy a $5 pack of cards and just it's like, no, you got to find the product. The product from last year was in potato sticks. That you got a card in the potato stick, and I just happened to have a friend, and I was like, he's like, hey, I went and bought 20 bags of potato sticks because I eat them. So he's like, I'll send you the cards. I was like, all right, great, thank you.
Great deal.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that it takes Japan to put a card in a meat stick when Slim Jims could have did that with Macho Man back in the day, and they never did. Right. Think about that.
Just a big cardboard cutout. That was it.
Right, yeah. Right. Yeah, amazing. One of the cards that I was looking through your book that I didn't realize existed, and I think it's pretty cool card, but it's out of, hold on a second, I'm looking at the page. If you got a question, go ahead and ask it, Mike, because it's going to take me a second to find this one card.
Well, I've been wondering about, does Ricky Dozon have any like older cards? I think he's in the 1998 set, right? They have a card of him or something, but
yeah, it's like a
tribute card. Yeah,
actually, he does have some Mankos from the 50s. I'm working on that with a few other people. I physically have seen the cards. I have photos of the cards. We're just trying to determine who else is in that set with it. So that will be in the update.
Okay. Awesome.
Shameless plug. Yeah.
Hey, take advantage of it.
So the card is in the 1998 Sparkling Fighters.
Okay.
Great Kabuki, authentic poison mist.
Yep.
Number to 200. Do you have that card? And can you describe that card? What is it?
It is. Were you familiar with the Flair showcase cards that had like the pouch of like liquid in them?
That basketball.
Basketball,
baseball.
Yeah.
Wave of the Future.
So
Wave of the Futures. It's like that.
In the middle of the card is a pouch of his poison mist.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
There were a few of them up for sale last year, and they sold, I believe, in like the $400 or $500 range.
Gotcha.
They were awesome looking.
Yeah, I'd easily pay $500 for one of those, to be honest with you, just because the history with Great Kabuki and the idea that it's a poison mist in the card. There's just something cool about that in general.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing I was going to say that I find very interesting about Japanese cards that a lot of people who don't necessarily collect them might not realize is how far ahead of the American version they were when it came to inserts and relics and autographs and everything like that. Can you touch on that a little bit for people so they can learn a little bit about that?
Sure. The first known relic was from 1997 BBM Sparkling Fighters, and it was Megumi, blanking on the last name right now.
Kudo.
She was with FFW, and that was the very first shirt relic, costume relic. The first known autograph in packs was the 1998 BBM Pancrest Wrestling. That set is notable for having Minoru Suzuki's autograph in it, and also Masakatsu Funaki, the two founders of Pancrest Wrestling. They didn't call them canvas cards, but in 2002, 2003, they had a canvas feel card that was an insert. It was like an 8 or 10 card set. They've done double relics, triple relics. They're ahead of the game, it seems like, before everybody else. And they're numbered, which is really good because that chase, it makes them valuable. It's still, to this day, they still sell for hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, because your Megumi Kudo costume card is numbered to 150, which is a pretty decent low number for something from 97.
Yeah. And
it's probably even harder to find it, let alone the fact that there's only 150 of them produced.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now touch base on a little bit, because I know it made humongous news here in the United States, still does. The 97 ECW set, the 9-card set. What do you know about that set? And are there still VHSs sealed in Japan that you can find today? I'm sure there probably is, but what's your thoughts on all that?
I have seen a few people online that have purchased sealed VHS tapes because it's not really known which tapes they were put into. And then they get them and they open them and there's nothing in there. So that's the gamble you take, because not knowing. I'm sure once people do find out exactly what tapes they were, it'll probably spike. Those cards, they are very tough to find.
Yep.
And when they do pop up, even the lesser names of that 9-card set sell for the $75 to $100 range. The bigger names can go for $125, $150. It's just trying to find them. Yeah, Sam, and there you go.
These are the ones I have. So if anyone has any of the ones I'm missing, I would gladly pay or trade for them.
Yeah.
I have five of the 9.
Oh, you got you got the BWO. That's been the toughest one for a few people to complete their sets with.
Yeah. Yeah, I got the Taz and the BWO, the Eliminators, Bulldogs, and Sandman. I've never been able to get the other four, which that's what makes collecting fun. And but getting back to those the VHS tapes. So on the tapes themselves, like when you had VHS cards that here in the States or even in DVDs, they have a little sticker that says, contains. They don't have nothing identified in any of the VHS tapes.
So far from what's been purchased and discovered and looked into, no.
And then the cassettes themselves, do you get all 9 cards, or is it just 1 card per case?
From what I have been told and read up on, I believe it's only 1 card in a case.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, that makes it even more tougher to complete that set. I think that, to be honest with you, out of all the Japan products, considering that it's an American cross promotion, I think that's probably one of the rare sets there is out there, don't you?
It is definitely a tougher set to come across.
Now, another thing. Sorry, Mike. Do you got a question? Mike?
I was just going to ask you, like, out of your collection that you have, what is your personal favorite that you have in your collection?
I am really big on collecting Mitsuhiro Basawa autographs.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're pack pulled or they're signed in person. I currently have, I think, 8 of them. Nice. Yeah, so that's what I like to chase and go after for if it's a reasonable price. I'll try to go crazy. There are some out there that are kind of high up there in price, and I stay away from them. But if it's a good deal, I'll pick them up.
What would you say is if you could do a top 10? Or if you don't want to go that high, even the top 5 American wrestler cards that appear in Japan, what would be those that you would tell people that they might not know about that are worth grabbing or getting their hands on?
People wrestling in the States now that maybe started in Japan is probably
not necessarily just a Japanese card in general, like the like Christian and Edge. To me,
sure.
That's probably one of that's got to be in the top 10. What's some of the other ones that you think are notable that people should be aware of?
Prince Devitt, Finn Balor rookie card from 07-08. It's out of a factory set, only 2,000 cards made. The 2011 Legends of the Champion Kenny Omega with Ibushi. That's his first card. Those are starting to really climb up in price. Who else we got? Rob Van Dam, 1996. Those still sell for really good money. Any American that basically has a card in Japan, and usually if they're anywhere near the first card or a rookie card, they tend to sell really good still to this day. Who else we got in this? AJ Styles, he has some cards from Japan. Those still continue to sell really good. I mean, obviously, you get to the older stuff with Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan's. Right. Those, they still command some good money. Still to this day, they still sell. The WCW NWO set from Bandai from 1998, that sells. The singles in that set still sell really well. And the inserts are really tough to come by.
Yeah, to me, one of the guys that I always liked as a kid growing up, and he's very popular, and I get people all the time trying to get his cards whenever I can get Japanese stuff in, is Abdullah the Butcher.
Oh yeah, yeah. His 1976 Yamakatsu All Japan. It's got the 2-color background. That's a tough card to find. They don't come up very often. And then the same with the 81 Marusho and the 81 Poppy. Like, those are some tough cards to come across. And they Japan, the Japanese fans have an appreciation for deathmatch wrestling. So they do like the gore. So Abdullah is held in high esteem there still to this day.
Are there any wrestlers you see from Japan that you think could jump to the United States and be a star, that their cards are from Japan?
It's, I mean, there are, but it's just a matter of,
or would they?
Yeah, it's more of a you get it more with the foreign wrestlers coming over to Japan. Not so much, you don't see the Japanese wrestler try to come to the States. They do, but there is that, sometimes it's the language barrier. If they don't speak it fluently, it can get lost in the shuffle. Like WWE, they have a lot of great wrestlers there, and some of them just end up lost in the shuffle. As far as anybody currently, I could see Will Ospreay coming to the States and maybe doing AEW, but he's made it known that he doesn't want to live in the U.S. So that's we'll see where that goes next year when his contract's up.
Now, 1998, another cross promotion that I thought was kind of interesting was the Lucha Libre set. What's your thoughts on that? Do you have that set yourself?
I do, and I have the 4-card update set also.
Oh, what's the 4-card update? I didn't even realize there was one.
I believe it came out the following year. It follows the numbering sequence.
Gotcha.
The 4-card update, I think, has Mills Mascaras in it, I believe, if I'm remembering off the top of my head. It's cool set. Right? You don't see them come up very often, but when you do see them, it's a complete set. It's a little book that holds all the cards, so it's you never see singles for it. That's very rare.
Yeah, because I know I got one of those sets myself, and it's been tucked away for a while, but I've always been looking for more to try to just put some singles on my webpage and everything like that. But it's a neat set. You almost don't want to break it up just because of the case that it comes in.
Exactly. Yeah, it is a nice displayable set. But that's probably why you don't see very many singles, because nobody wants, and they're numbered too. The set is numbered. So that's probably another reason you don't see very many singles out of it.
I'm I'm a Japanese wrestling card noob. So this is all new to me. You probably picked up on that already, but like for somebody like me that might be watching that isn't into this, that might want to get into it, like where's a good place to start?
The easiest place to start is to see who are your favorite wrestlers and start that, you start that route. If it's somebody currently wrestling in Japan or somebody that formerly wrestled in Japan and now they're wrestling in the States, Shinsuke Nakamura is a great example. He has a bunch of cards from his time in Japan. His cards in the U.S. tend to not sell anywhere near what his Japanese cards sell for. It's weird, but yeah, obviously they're more limited. So
yeah,
the supply and demand, there's not very many of his Japanese autos that come up for sale very often. And when they do, they tend to command a nice little premium compared to his U.S. cards.
Great.
I want to ask you your opinion on something. Hulk Hogan, had some extensive time in Japan for a while. His Poppy figure with the card and everything, we all know how valuable that is. Later on, a lot of nice sets were put together, like Legends of a Champion, that really highlights a lot of, great people who, were champions and everything. I'm curious, any idea why Hulk Hogan doesn't appear in a lot of these more modern day Japanese sets from the 90s and 2000s? Because you can go back there and you'll have, like I mentioned, Abdullah Butcher. You'll have Stan Hansen as another big name that almost seems to be in any all-time great set that Japan puts out. Why not Hulk Hogan? I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
His name's trademarked.
Gotcha.
You got to pay to play.
You're paying quite a bit more for him than you are everybody else.
You're going to pay a lot more for him.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with, Ric Flair's not in those sets. Anybody of a big name, they're not in those sets. And it's especially during the height of popularity with those the U.S. wrestlers.
Yeah.
I'm sure they weren't willing to pay those fees.
Do you see a day where, like you said earlier, how, why don't they take the extra step and just print a cool trading card, put something on the back and a bio? Do you think that day will come, or they just don't interest?
I think seeing the progress they have made over the different sets that they have made, and doing that picture on the back, and noticing that they do sell and that people are buying them. Hopefully that just starts the little trickle of coming back and showing the popularity that cards can be really popular and a good profit maker for you. I'm hoping, as obviously everything has been lifted and restrictions, more female wrestlers from Japan are coming to the States. They'll see the popularity and hopefully they'll start, taking the advice of, hey, we would like wrestling cards. We want trading cards like that. That would go a long way, especially
and hopefully see that the people in this country want them too. Like they would be able to sell probably quite a few here.
It would be amazing. I mean, yeah, like everybody, everybody likes the cards and they want to buy packs and boxes, but trying to find them and trying to get them shipped here, it costs a lot of extra money these days, unfortunately.
If there's one set that you think for the value has potential to really grow through the years, which one set would that be? Do you think it's the 1998 Bandai WCW NWO? Which set do you think is one that a guy could buy that, let it ripen in a closet for 5 or 6 years, and you'll be surprised at what the value of it will be?
A set with a good mix that would probably be in the top. I would say the 95 set, the 96 set, and then the sleeper set for me is the 2000 set, which has the big U.S. wrestler in there. It's Nick Gage's rookie card, but it also has Hiroshi Tanahashi's rookie card. It has Katsutori Shibata's rookie card in it. It has Kenta's rookie card in it. It has Marufuji's rookie card. I mean, that set is loaded with the first cards of a lot of Japanese legends to this day. And set-wise, you could still pick it up for a decent price.
Yeah, because the Nick Gage card, that card in the last, I would say, year or two is really kind of gone crazy, don't you think?
It has, and especially signed rookie cards have exploded. And they're not, you can't find them. They're pretty hard to find these days. So if you do find one, you're either very lucky or you're paying a premium for it.
Now, previous guests that we had on, Michael Ford, mentioned to me a while ago that one thing I had to look at moving into it similar to these kind of cards is oh God, I can't think of the name off the top of my head. The sumo wrestlers. Have you ever done anything with any of the sumo boxes? Breaking any of those or anything at all?
I have not touched any. I have one sealed pack of the sumo wrestling cards from like the 2003, and that is the extent of sumo wrestling.
Gotcha.
And that's why the original title of the book was going to be Japanese Wrestling Trading Card, but I changed it to Pro Wrestling because sumo wrestling is super popular in Japan, and so I wanted to make sure it was noted that pro wrestling was in this book, not sumo wrestling. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yep. Good idea.
Find what you're looking for in pro wrestling without adding sumo wrestling.
Exactly. I have a hard enough time researching pro wrestling cards. I can only imagine what the sumo wrestling cards would do for me.
So why don't you plug your book? Tell people where they can get it. How do they buy it? Where do they contact you? That kind of deal.
Sure. Book's available through messaging me on Twitter or Instagram. Save you a few bucks. It's available on eBay also if you just search the title of the book. My Instagram is R Velligan or Japanese Wrestling Cards. My Twitter is R Velligan. It was 16 months of nothing but research at night, during the shutdown of the world, and at least something good came of it so far. So it's
what's your future plan for updates to the book?
Tentatively right now, I'm gonna put out a second edition in 2025.
Okay.
I may do a electronic version next year, but as far as a physical book, it'll be probably 2025 will be the next update.
Well, I'll let you know. I'll let you know from my perspective. I prefer a book over electric every single day.
That's how
especially for this kind of stuff. Like,
yeah,
if I need to find that, pick this up, look at it. Oh, there it is.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's the way I am.
I think the only way with the electronic version would be if you type in a name and it would sort every single card that person had. That would be the benefit of electronic version.
Yeah. I've had people ask me for that on my website, but the web hoster I'm not able to use it with the web hoster I have. But yeah, I could see where that would be a big plus, because that's kind of something that Beckett has. You know, when you're going through a Beckett price guide, their online price guide, stuff like that you're able to do that. That's kind of neat to have.
Yeah.
So no, I just wanted to say really appreciate anything else you want to throw out there before we kind of start wrapping things up about Japanese cards. I will say one other thing that I want to mention, and maybe you can talk a little bit more about this. The other thing I liked about Japanese cards is they're all full glossy cards, front and back, great colors. You know, the photography's amazing. And when you compare that to our era from 97, 98 and stuff like that, they're just so further ahead. What's your thought on that?
They from my experience, they take care of the card from start to finish.
Yep.
There is no rough edges. There is no miscuts. It's very rare you see that. Even when you're opening packs from 20 years ago, 25, you don't see it. It's amazing that you can open a pack from 20 years ago and the cards look like they've been, sitting for the last 20 years, just untouched, and they don't stick together. They don't brick. They just make a really good quality product, and hopefully they start making more.
Let's hope so. One last question for me as the noob. If I wanted to buy an Ultimo Dragon card, what should I get? What's a cool one to start with?
Is 1996 BBM Pro Wrestling Rookie. That would probably, let me say that's the Japanese first card form. There's kind of that he may have something in Mexico previous.
Yeah.
But the 1996 BBM is a really nice card. It's got a little mini action photo of him on front doing, it looks like a spin kick.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. It's a cool card.
Awesome. I appreciate that. All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap things up here. Anything else, Anthony?
No, I just want to say thanks, Rich, for coming on. You provided a lot of good information, which is why we do these podcasts. And thanks for coming on. It was a real pleasure to be able to talk to you and highlight your book and a lot of stuff that was in it.
I appreciate you guys inviting me.
And it's the Japanese Pro Wrestling Trading Card Almanac. If you're into Japanese wrestling cards, buy this. Like you're crazy. Look at all the cards that are listed in here. You won't need anything else. You won't have to go to your computer and type in one right after the other. It's all right here in a book. Kids, this is called a book.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great starting point to start a collection too. Learn the information before you're searching.
Yep,
that's what definitely. I'm going to do. So, all right. Appreciate you being on. Rich Velligan, again, Japanese Pro Wrestling Trading Card Almanac. Go buy it. Go buy it. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.